All I can do is create and present it to the world and then go to the next issue or the next project and do the work.
What's happening, Hellspawn? Welcome back to another episode of Spawnography, but not just any episode of Spawnography, a very special episode. And to help me introduce it, well, first off, my name's George Marston, one of the hosts of this podcast. My pronouns are they, them, or she, her. And with me, as always, is my co-host,
Pierce Ladden, pronouns they, them. Happy Pride Month.
That's
George.
Exactly right. It's one of my favorite sins.
So last month in May, we had the absolute pleasure of getting to talk with the Todd father himself. And we did have some technical difficulties at the beginning of recording, but it smoothed out over time. So we'll cut to that soon. But if the beginning feels like a little like, wait, did I miss something? You didn't. Some parts of it just didn't record, so we don't have them.
Yeah, there were some technical difficulties. Really only the first 2 or 3 minutes of the conversation. I had a great time talking to Todd. There'll be a recap after this episode, but just to set the stage, we went through and talked about some of our most interesting bullet points from the first 100 issues of Spawn, and we honestly kind of let Todd just go. There were a lot of opportunities to let him just give us the backstory and dig into what he remembered about creating Spawn, kind of like a director's cut in a way, or a director's commentary. And we had a blast.
And we got some real information about Harry Houdini. And so that was important.
Yes, we did. We actually answered, we got the answer in a way to one of my personal favorite questions about the first 100 issues of Spawn. So if you're just joining us for the first time ever, because we are speaking to Todd McFarlane in this episode, just to let you know what we do usually on an episode-to-episode basis is we'll go through 1 to 4 issues of Spawn or a Spawn spin-off comic, kind of page by page in a lot of cases, detail by detail, dig into what it means for the Spawn mythos as a comic, and also turn our critical eye to it. We like to think we've got a lot to say, and if you look back at the runtimes of our episodes, you'll agree. In this case, like I said, we kind of just let Todd run.
Yeah. I think this needs no further intro. So without further ado, thanks for listening. Here's us with the Todd father. See you later, Hellspawn. Hey there, Hellspawn. Welcome back for another episode of Spawnography. If it's your first time listening, usually we are a podcast that is going through Todd McFarlane's greatest creation, Spawn, arc by arc, issue by issue. But today we have a slightly different kind of thing going on. Here with me, as always, is my co-host.
Hey, what's up? It's George.
And also the one and only.
That's right. I'm so excited to talk to you, Todd. Thanks so much for making the time. You know, we just wrapped up reading the first 100 issues of Spawn, and it was an incredible journey. Honestly, it's a rare experience to get to read just a 100 issue run of a comic, especially with one creator being involved on some level the whole way. You know, it's almost like I compare it in our episode that we recorded about it to the first 100 issues of Spider-Man or Fantastic Four, and the way that it's kind of a creative treatise on what was happening at the time in a way that other comics haven't gotten to do. So the question that I want to ask you is, how do you feel about those 100 issues when you look back? Is it something, what do you think about it?
So I'll just pick
Beautiful.
up.
Okay.
So here's what I would say. When you've got somebody who stays on a book for a long time as compared to what normally happens when somebody comes in on a book, let's take, even a book like Spider-Man or something like that. Stan Lee does the first 50. The next person comes along, Jerry Conway, whoever, sort of does a bit of a mini rerun of what Stan does. And then the person after Jerry then comes in and does a rerun of Jerry, who does a rerun of Stan. And so you keep getting into a little bit of a loop on a lot of comic books at times. I think if Stan Lee had stayed on Spider-Man for 300 plus issues, I think the stories would have gone in different directions. And the reason is because the person who's been there for 300 issues has to entertain themselves too. They don't want to basically just keep regurgitating the same things. So if I had a bunch of people sort of writing the book over those years, probably there would have been a lot of repetition and whatever else. But I've tried to do some kind of evolution of that the character at the beginning of the Spawn mythos isn't the same one that you're reading today, because I just can't have it just from my own. I can't keep writing that same story. So I sort of have it as at the beginning, even still in the first 100 issues, he's sort of King Conan. And then eventually, as you get later into the run, he becomes, or he's Conan the Barbarian, excuse me, the first couple hundred issues. And then he turns into King Conan, which basically means that he gets wiser and he gets smarter and he goes, oh, I used to think you have to lop everybody's heads off to win the battle. I think there's other ways of winning. And if you watch something like Game of Thrones, there's many ways. You just manipulate people in politics and other ways to sort of assert your power. It doesn't have to be brutal. It doesn't have to be physical all the time. Spawn, in those first 100 issues, still in his physical stage of like, I'm military. Those are the bad guys. Everything's a little bit black and white. Let's go. Right. And he will eventually grow into knowing that that isn't the way to win this long ongoing war.
That's something that I really noticed, that we both noticed throughout the first 100 issues, is that Spawn as a character in the title just refuses to be stagnant in that way. Maybe you'll bring back plot points or reiterate ideas, but by the end of that 100 issues, just as you said, Al Simmons is a totally different person. How much was that the ethos starting out?
I didn't know it was, but it naturally had to be there. You can imagine at the beginning, we were all sort of fresh to this and we were just excited to get out the next issue. It wasn't until probably I got up to issue 15, 16 that I go, wow, we get I have to start painting the entire canvas here now, right? I just can't be like, hey, I've created this little character. He looks cool. Look at him. He does some cool stuff. That's not going to basically win the day, right? And some of it, the success we had was, the group of us starting Image coming off of our hit titles at Marvel. So we knew at some point that the books we were doing were going to have to stand on their own two legs creatively, and that's where you have to put your head down and go, okay, how's this going to work? How are we going to literally build a world around this character? And that's, you get remnants of that the first 100 issues.
Do you feel that, you mentioned like, through 16 issues, realizing like, okay, I have to paint with kind of a broader brush, bigger canvas. Is some of that brought on? I mean, at the time, you brought in other writers, pretty much a bunch of all-stars from across comics to come in and write an issue. Did that teach you something about the potential that the character had, bringing in Dave Sim and Alan Moore, Grant Morrison, et cetera?
Not really. And again, it's not that it's like, oh, Todd, you didn't learn anything from them. It's just that because I think each one of them was very limited in what they had to do. They each got one poke at it, right? And so, Dave Sim said, hey, I'm going to do something about sort of the current state of the industry. Frank just wanted to do a brawl. Alan Moore said, hey, I'll go do something down in hell, I think. And then Neil just said, I don't want to basically just do what you've done the first 5, 6 issues. Let me come and do something a little bit different. And it was like, okay, like, again, I didn't give any rules to any of them. Like, you guys go and do what you got to do. I think all of it would have been true even if I hadn't done those 4 issues with them. Just the mere fact that you're going to do, I mean, at that point, I was hoping to get up to 25, 50 issues. And then eventually 100. Now here we are, 200, 300, 350 plus. You then begin to spend more time on the possibilities of what some of the cause and effect of any of these characters' actions and or stories may have long term. It's why I continue to this day to do, I don't know what you guys call them, the little sort of editorial boxes, the asterisk boxes. Because like when I first started collecting comic books, I like those little things to go, what did you saying? If I went and bought that issue 10 issues ago, somehow this ties into it. Oh man, that's cool. And then the ones that were even cooler were the ones that said, if I was reading Spider-Man, that said, this happened in Hulk 320. So I go find the Hulk 321, and sure enough, that villain was in that issue and did something that somehow tied in. I don't know. I just thought it was cool. I thought it was like fun little goofy stuff. It just reminded me that all these characters sort of live, loosely in the same sort of space, and it just I gave added value to it. In my case, because I really, for the most part, only had the one book. There were a couple of little miniseries scattered around there, but I didn't do those till I think post issue 50, because the one thing I did say is I just want to put my head down for 50 issues and then come up for air, and then we'll worry about some other stuff. I think we did a couple, maybe the Violator
yeah,
series or something. So we did a couple of them maybe before that, but I thought it was important to not get distracted from the core book, because I thought that the core book would be the foundation that I would be able to build sort of everything upon. And from that, be able to come up with sort of new characters and stuff like that.
At what point did you kind of decide or realize that Spawn could get so much bigger than just that book? I know you said you expanded around issue 50, but you were making toys already. At what point did you realize this could be more than just a comic book? This is an empire.
I don't know that in all honesty, I don't know that I ever thought of it in that point. The only thing that I'm cognizant of is momentum, right? Like, and so the momentum came right at issue number 1. What are you talking about? We came out and we sold 1.8 million copies of it. Still today is a record for, an independent creator owned book here in the American comic book trade, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. I took all that momentum I had on Spider-Man over at Marvel, where we set some records over there, and then we pushed it over to Image, and then specifically for me into Spawn. And so it's like, how do we keep it going? Like, we got a good thing going. How do we keep it going? And so how you're sort of rolling out the next issues, what they look like, who the characters are, and then even some of the stuff that ended up coming up behind it, like you're saying, the toys, the movie, the HBO animated show, all of those were just things to help keep the momentum of this word Spawn continuing to exist, so that I didn't have a failure on my hand, right? The goal was, from the very beginning, wasn't to build an empire. It was to see if I could create a character that would outlive me. That was it. That was a simple goal. Now, if that's your goal, then you must have a certain level of success to go with it. Because if you plan to live another 50 years, that means your book has to last 50 years, which means there has to be enough success over those 50 years to justify it existing, right? Instead of just saying, well, Todd's going to basically keep making Spawn even if there's only 3 people that are buying it. I probably would, because I'm stubborn, but it seemed like it would be a lot more fun of a party if there was more people there. And so to me, all those other things that you're talking about are just trying to get the brand name of Spawn out further. And I continue to do it to this day. I mean, the mindset hasn't changed.
Do you think that because we read the letters columns, just because I think it's a great way to kind of see what people at the time who were reading the book were really feeling like. And you do get some comments where they're like, how come you're doing this? Why are you doing this? Why don't you care about the book? And like, it's a little funny to read all of your responses over the 8 years of the first 100 issues of the book, because especially issue 1, very full of piss and vinegar about the start of Image Comics, the start of Spawn. And then over time, you can kind of see things change where
you're like, listen, I want this to live forever. What were some of the like challenges that you felt that you faced in terms of keeping up with the massive success of those early issues? I mean, like you said, pretty gangbusters out the gate, right?
Yeah, look at, and then again, I think you have to have certain personalities, and I've got one. I'm competitive, been competitive since I came out of the womb, right? I had a brother a year younger, brother a year older, so we were competitive in everything. I don't care what it was, who dressed the fastest, who could eat the most, who could like so. And then I ended up getting into sports, which was competitive. So that thing is just always been a piece of my DNA. So being competitive, that's sort of easy. Let's go. Let's see if we can come up with something that'll work. But here's the one piece. Here's the one piece that people say it, but I don't know if they mean it. I'm telling you, like fucking hook me up to the lie detector. I don't really give a shit about anybody else's opinion. I don't. Like, I put out my work, and if you hate it, okay, my answer to you is I'd spend my time and money on things that I enjoy, right? This is a you problem, not a me problem, right? If I don't like pistachio ice cream, I just don't fucking buy it. I don't talk about it. I don't go to pistachio.com and complain about it. I just don't consume it, right? Done. And then there's the other piece, which is kind of equally disinteresting to me, is I don't care why you like it either. And I don't say that with disdain. I say it because the book is already out and it's done, and or the cover that I put out tomorrow on Instagram, whether you like it or you dislike it, that's the cover. That's the cover. I'm not here to say, this is where I think social media distorts things. I'm not putting it out to say, do you like it to get admiration? I'm not looking for that. I put out a cover, has factual information. That's the cover. That's when it's going to come out. And that's the artist who did it. If you like any of that information, then it comes out on May 22nd and it's $2.99. That's all I can do for you. That's all I can do. It's like a movie trailer. Here's the trailer. If you like it, the movie comes out May 17th, right? It's up to you to decide what you're going to do with it. I don't have any authority or any power over anybody to force anybody to like or dislike anything I do. All I can do is create and present it to the world, and then go to the next issue or the next project and do the work. What you hope for is, you cross your fingers, is that you get enough people along that path that will support you. Because I think there's a distortion too, that people think that you're looking for all 8 billion people on the planet. No, I don't need all 8 billion people on the planet to be successful. What I need is enough people. And my definition of enough depends on how much of a lifestyle I want to have, how many people I employ, how much I pay them. I mean, it comes with that. I've been fortunate enough to have enough people that have enjoyed what has come out of either my hand and or my studio to be able to continue to do it for 40 years. I've been in the comic book industry for 40 years. So, okay, people vote. Like, I don't even need social media because people vote with their dollars, right? If they buy a bunch of stuff, then I assume that there's a bunch of them that like it. And if nobody buys it, I assume nobody likes it. I mean, I don't need any more data than that. Sales will tell you about 80, 95% of what you need to know. And then the rest of it is people going, why didn't you bring this character in, or why didn't you do that, or whatever else, right? Like I said, my job isn't to make anybody happy. That's not my job. My job is to create and to present stuff that I hope will entertain people. That's it. That's all I got. That's the only power I have. And then I leave it up to everybody else to make the decision of whether they like it. And I've been fortunate. Here's the fortunate part. I've been fortunate that it's worked out. I'm going on 40 years in the comic book industry. So I've gotten way more lucky than other people. But if I start worrying about what people want or don't want in my books on a day-to-day basis, I'm going to get creative paralysis. So Abe Lincoln taught me a long, long, long time ago, and I'll paraphrase, Todd, you can't please them all, dude, right? So once you accept that to be a truism, and I accepted that a long, long time ago, then it's liberating. It's liberating to know that, like, as a matter of fact, the first time somebody criticizes something, it actually puts a smile on my face because I go, man, Abe was right again. He's right every day, every day, every day, every day, every day. So life isn't perfect. That means like shit, I do stuff that my mom and my wife and kids don't like. If I can get past that, I don't have to worry about a stranger in Portugal not liking my stuff.
So you mentioned the people that you've worked with, and you've mentioned the challenge and the goal of getting Spawn out month to month, keeping the train going, always keeping it on shelves.
Yep.
Through the course of those first 100 issues, you brought in a lot of collaborators, some very important ones, Greg Capullo, Brian Holguin. How did you come to the decision to bring those people in, and how did it affect your opinion of making the book, and how did it affect your approach to making it?
Okay, so I think if you look at the 100 issues, I'm quite proud, and I try to do it even today. I'm quite proud that the number of people that actually worked on the book is minimal, right? Like, because again, I was a fan. I try to do almost everything. Like almost everything I do comes from like the 15-year-old Todd, right? Like what 15-year-old Todd look like? And what I used to like is when I found a book and I liked it, I wanted the same people to be on it forever, right? Like, what are you talking about? It was devastating to me when John Byrne quit the X-Men, the Uncanny X-Men. Killed me. And for 20 years, I thought he was coming back. I held my breath. I think there actually are people think I'm coming back to Spider-Man. So God bless him, because that's what I would have thought. So one, I wanted to have as few people work on the book as possible because I like consistency. So let's talk about it then. For the most part, artistically, the first 100 issues are two people, right? Todd and Greg Capullo, right? That's it. That's like pencil-wise, that's pretty much it. I think there's one issue in there that's not true.
A Tony Daniel in there and
Right.
one Dwayne Turner.
Right. So it's a 98, 99% sort of batting average there.
Pretty good.
I did a ton of inking until my life got busy. And so I brought on Danny Mickey. And again, we got some help from a handful of people, but I tried to make Danny my main guy as the inker. Prior to that, it was me, Todd. And then writing wise, it was me for, I think, 80 issues or whatever. And then I think Brian Holguin came in, and then we were writing stuff together. And then coloring wise, I think it was Steve Oliff, and then Brian Haberlin came in, and he sort of did. I had two colorists. And then lettering, it's Tom Orzechowski. What are you talking about? Tom Orzechowski has done more pages of Spawn than any other human being because he's worked essentially on every single issue. There's a debate about the one that he did, but his wife did it, so he was in the room helping her do it. So,
I mean,
I still give him credit on it. Like, what are you talking about? So that was important to me. Now, the question is, how do you go about picking the people? I would be lying to you if I told you that I knew when I picked Greg Capullo that I knew he was going to be the superstar that he is today, right? I could see that he was good. I could see that he was hungry. I could see that he was going to grow into it, and I could see that he could meet deadlines. I had no idea he was going to be a superstar, right? So that was just, at times, you get lucky when you draft. Using a sports vernacular, sometimes you just draft guys, and they just like go, wow, who knew, right? Michael Jordan wasn't the number one draft pick. He was like number 3 or 4, right? So it was like, man, we got lucky. So Greg Capullo was my Michael Jordan. Right? I got him, thought he was going to be really good, didn't know he was going to be phenomenal. And then Tom Orzechowski, given that was my book, I get to pick all these people. I thought he was the best letterer in the business, and he was doing X-Men, and I go, man, I want that guy. And I've been fortunate that he's hung around all these 30 plus years. And then Steve Oliff had sort of set sort of a trend with computer coloring. He was right at literally the cutting edge of it. And so I go, hey, I want that guy because he's sort of thinking outside the box. And then once it wasn't working on Steve's end with his studio, then Brian Haberlin came in, and he, to me, just took it up another notch in terms of the coloring. Here's the thing, if you sort of like what you see in issue 35 of Spawn, it's essentially kind of sort of what you're going to see at issue 85 and issue 100. Like, I mean, that look is going to be there. I guess it's a bit of an all or nothing bet, because if you don't like it, you go, why would I come back, right? But I think that Greg grew as an artist during that time. Danny Mickey was inking his butt off. I mean, it was phenomenal. I remember showing Danny Mickey Bernie Wrightson's Frankenstein. He'd never didn't even know it existed. And I'm like, what?
Wow.
You've never seen it? Like, and I bought him the book and I gave it to him. And I'm telling you, 2 weeks later, he was inking like he was Bernie Wrightson on Frankenstein. And I was like, wow, that was a chameleon. There are pages, I will put up pages that Greg Capullo penciled and Danny Mickey inked has some of the best pages in comic books in the last 30 years. Like if you see them in black and white,
Don't disagree.
they are phenomenal. They are phenomenal. And then the only thing is can you write and keep up with the level of the art that was being produced? Can you come up with interesting stories? And then, like I said, with the addition of Brian Holguin, it was like, hey, I felt like I needed somebody to just not always just come through my lens completely, just sort of give me something a little bit different. That's it. And that same mentality. After that, Angel Medina was on it for a while. You're gonna find this out once you get past 100.
Yep.
Angel Medina was on it for a while. Probably there's a little bit of scrambling between like 150 to 200, but then at 200 to 250 was Shimon Kudransky. Boom, done. Right? He did 50 issues in a row, and then I think Wills came on for a bit, and then I got a good run. I mean, Carlo Barbary and Brett Booth. I mean, considering that there's 360 issues, and I could probably name all the artists kind of on two hands, I think is to me a plus at the success of the book. And I also knew that I was getting busy, and there was a day. Look, I had a couple. My one big epiphany in comic books came. I was doing bi-weekly Spider-Man. And I was doing for DC this miniseries they had called Invasion. And I was doing close to, instead of doing like 20 pages plus 20 pages of ink and 40, I was doing like 110 pages in a month. And I don't, yeah, but I don't say that with pride. It was the epiphany where I stepped back and I looked at what I had done. And I went, there's very little of those 110 pages that I'm super proud of, right? They're good and they got done and I met my deadlines, but they weren't great. And again, in terms of me being satisfied, not everybody else can have their own opinion, but they weren't great to me. And I remember coming out of that sort of Invasion double bi-weekly going, I'll never do that again. I'd rather make less money and have less fame and have less, but I did a disservice to the readers. And I didn't think it was fair to them. And so at some point on Spawn, that happened. And I was having children and I was probably getting sued at that point. I was starting a toy company and Hollywood was coming around and I just couldn't keep. I didn't think as high a quality as I needed to write pencil and ink my book, which is where Greg Capullo came in. So I go, I can write and I can ink, so I can still keep the look, but I can't devote the anal time to do those really cool buildings and all that other stuff that's really fun to look at from a reader's point of view. So I had to go and get somebody else. And so whenever I get to a point where I just go, if you can't give it your best, then you should let others try to give it their best and see how that happens. So, but luckily I was able to sustain the vast majority of being at least writer inker on the majority of the stuff through the 100.
And also I'd say that you're very much the kind of guiding force behind it anyway. It's not like these folks are making these books in a tower where they don't speak with you. You're very much the creative force behind it. I think what's really
you see me yesterday. All I do is move word balloons around. I spent 2 hours on Sam and Twitch issue 14 yesterday, just with the word balloons and going, hey, that's not going to work. Maybe we need to cut those 2 words out. We can make it smaller, move it over there. Sadly, I should tape myself because I'm still kind of a little bit anal about it. Because here's why. I believe that the finished product, the printed product that a person looks at is the story, is the art, right? Is the entertainment. It's not the writing or the penciling or the coloring or the lettering or the inking. It's all of it combined on one page. That's what I'm looking at. How does this page look finished, completed, head to toe with everything on it, including word balloons and color? So then I go, is that a good looking page? Good. Go to the next page.
Yeah, and I think that, to your point about the way that you collaborate, choose collaborators, and also approach things like a fan who wants to see these sustained runs, right? When we think of great sustained runs on comics, they've become fewer and fewer and farther between these
Yeah.
days because books aren't allowed to live like that. So I actually think that one of the things in going through these first 100 issues, it's not just that, you're super popular in the beginning. It's also that the book as well, like as your approach and the look of the book becomes something that, you know, the computer coloring that was being used effectively was ahead of its time. The general look of the book and tone of the book was ahead of its time for being successful in that way. And I think that's a real credit to you. I know that we didn't have you on just to say how great you are, but I think it is undeniable, and it's amazing to hear you talk about it.
Well, look, so let me talk about a couple of points. Issue five was an important issue to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going way back. It was the Billy Kincaid issue.
Of course.
Right.
And so it was important because it was the issue where I was saying out loud to everybody, as dramatically and visually as I could, that Spawn is not Batman. I know he's a creature of the night. I know he sort of looks cool. I know he's got a big cape. He's not Batman, right? And why? Because take a look at the last page, issue number 5, right? He took Billy out, right? So he's not above, and I'm not saying it makes him good or bad. I'm just saying that's who that character is. He's not above. You shoot him, he'll shoot back, right? Like he's like, you want to come at him and try to cut his throat, then he might cut yours, right? Because part of who I want Spawn to be as a character, which is sort of the reason why I want to do King Spawn, and I'm constantly talking about this to my writers and stuff, is I want the bad guys to be afraid of him. I want some of the stories not to be that the bad guys are coming after Spawn. I want it to be the opposite. I want it to be that Spawn is going after them, and his reputation now precedes him, and that's like fucking having a shark in your bed. Like you never, or a tiger in the fucking cage that you're locked into and hasn't eaten for a week. You don't want to be in that situation, right? So part of this evolution, the first 100, is building the reputation, right? Of going like, oh, this guy is different, not only from a superhero comic book level, but he's different from all the other Hellspawns too, right? All the villains are going to find out that like there's some X factor in this Hellspawn, and we got to try and see if we can't kill it in the crib, because if we let this thing grow, that might not be good for us, right? And so, unfortunately, they haven't been able to figure out how to kill it in the crib, and it is growing, right? So up to issue 350, and it's getting bigger and stronger and wiser and more sophisticated. That doesn't bode well for you bad guys, because he actually understands everything that you guys do now, and he's a chess master now. He can play the game better than he could play in those first 100 issues, right? The first 100 issues was just learning the game a little bit. So,
I guess to the point about the bad guys, how do you feel that the rogues gallery in those first 100 issues stack up against, other, your Batmans, your Spider-Mans, et cetera, and their first 100 issues?
I probably wish I had more like Doctor Doom types, the ones that like, oh man, that's the guy, right? So, I mean, I think sort of Violator Clown, I think a lot of people will sort of put them in sort of a villain category. And it's really one of the reasons why the Clown ended up transforming like he is today, where he's taller and bigger and, sort of looks like Kingpin. Because I didn't want him to just be the little short guy all the time making jokes, right? I wanted him to be more sophisticated than that. Because Violator is for sure. I Jason Wynn, I guess you could put Jason Wynn sort of in the Kingpin category, right? They didn't
For sure.
really any powers, but he's conniving, right? I think the most dangerous villain is the one that actually knows what they're doing, right? Will commit atrocities and be callous about it, right? People have asked me, like, Todd, who do you think is one of the great villains in movies? And one of them that's near the top, if not the top, is the mother in the animated Cinderella. And the reason I say that is because if you watch that movie, you want to strangle that woman, right? and yet, if you watch it, not once does she raise her voice. Not once does she lay a finger on Cinderella. But what she does do, which is the cruel part, is she knows what is of value to Cinderella, and she tries to take that away from her dreams and her hopes and her future. And that to me is evil incarnate, right? And so the Joker to me is like, he's a crazy man, so he does crazy things, right? I think the Kingpins and the Lex Luthors of the world and Hannibal Lecter, he's way more dangerous because he says it in a calm voice, Clarice, right? And he does it, but he will eat you alive in the right position, right? That you just go, wow, they're doing it and they know it. Look at Marlon Brando in Godfather arguably did something super sinister when he said, make him an offer he can't refuse. He knew exactly what that line meant. Basically, go destroy this man.
And that's kind of Malbolgia too, huh?
Yeah, well, yeah, but Malbolgia is way more grander than that, right?
True. I just mean an ethos a little bit.
Yeah. So, and Malbolgia, if we want to talk about him for a bit, Malbolgia, I've said before, is a devil, not the devil, right? So, because I sort of adhere to the Dante's Inferno, that there's different levels and that there's like a consortium of them that are out there and that evil comes in many sizes, shapes, and forms. So that's why, again, when you get to issue 100, when sort of the death of Malbolgia, I kept that throne empty for a long time because I was in my back of my mind going, hey, wouldn't there be a slow buildup eventually of people wanting it, right? Like eventually it's like the first while is just everybody's afraid to even go near it because they don't know what's going to happen and they don't know if Malbolgia is truly gone or not, right? So there's just a fear factor of whoever sits in the throne. And then at some point you go, oh, maybe John Byrne isn't coming back to Uncanny X-Men. Maybe I can send in my samples. Then you get, and to me, all that was sort of happening behind the scene. And maybe there was a line here or there where I would say it in issue 160 or 180 or 210 or something.
Mm-hmm.
I just go, hey, the throne has been abdicated. The throne is vacant. Basically, there's a power vacuum someplace. And so who's gonna take that up? Because again, whoever does take it up should be on the sort of on the same tier-ish as Malbolgia over the long run once you build them up. And it makes for sort of good storytelling, which I think was sort of the culmination of 350. You'll get there eventually. But it's like the repercussions, and that's what I'm talking about, the repercussions of what happened, which was a big dynamic moment in issue 100, now still has impact in issue 350 because that's what the story was about. Finally, somebody sitting on that throne, right? After 250 issues of nobody sitting on that throne, right? You're only up to issue 100. 250 issues. And then somebody finally sits it back down on the throne. So, because why? I don't think that those moments should be taken lightly, that it's like, oh, Malbolgia's dead, and by issue 106, somebody's sitting on the throne. I think it would diminish who Malbolgia was, and I think it would diminish that level of hell, and it would diminish the power of whoever is in charge at that moment in that level of hell. So I just wait. You could argue if there's a complaint, and I think it's a fair complaint, that I slow play a lot of this stuff way too long.
Mm-hmm.
You could have maybe done it in 100 issues later. And I don't know why you had to wait 250 issues. Some of us got old and moved on in life. I don't know. It's just the game I play.
Oh, it's Claremontian in its execution, right? Claremont would always leave things hanging for a couple years, and then eventually somebody would remind him, like, oh, you forgot about this. But in this case, you're planning it out a little bit.
I waited 20 years. Right?
Yeah.
Well, Todd, before we wrap up, and I know we only have a few minutes, I have one silly granular question that I need to ask you. And this is something I've been dying to ask you. Something that really delighted us when we were reading these issues was around the time of Spawn Batman, the crossover with Spawn and Batman. There was also an issue of the main Spawn title where he meets Harry Houdini. And a lot of the plot points are very similar, down to like mentioning his cape, him getting his face split. I just wanted to ask you about how you came to decide to kind of echo those plot points. I assume so readers would be able to keep up, but I just wanted to ask you about that because I was so delighted by it. I loved it so much.
So here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I'll tell you legally. Man, that's a coincidence. So here's sort of how it worked. Is I had a contract, and what it basically said is you can borrow Batman, but when you're done with Batman, you got to put Batman back exactly as you took him. You can't change him, you can't alter him, you can't do anything else. And then the second point is there can't be any continuity in this book that sort of like there's no continuity that carries over or whatever else, right? So I'm like, okay, it's a bummer, but okay, whatever. So I don't know. It just happened to be a coincidence that Harry Houdini fight with Spawn caused a cut in his face that happened to kind of sort of be where he got a batarang on some unrelated book, if you will.
The magic of comics. That's the magic of comics.
The magic of comic books. So I just found a back door to solving the problem. Anyways, it was just me. I mean, look, you have to remember this is still early in Image, and I'm still pretty young at that point, and I still a pistol. I mean, I'm a pistol today, but you can imagine when I was younger. And so I just it's like being antagonistic. I don't know what the word is. I get a kick out of it. So it was like, I Houdini, and he even says it. Hey, I was fighting this guy dressed in black, right? And then I've got the cut coming because he went some glass cut him and stuff like that. And then that was the beginning of where the shoelace came in, right? And then the shoelace goes in, and then the shoelace then gets sort of endowed with a little bit of power that ends up going to Cyan, and Cyan ends up getting it. And so you just create all these domino effects, right? And then you just go, hey, how's that? Hey, how's that? Okay, I mean, again, I'm constantly asking my writers, why are you doing that? Don't you know that like 40 issues ago they did this? Why don't you just play on some of that? Like, because again, here's what I say to my writers. If you got character A and you say, hey, I got this great idea and I want character A to marry character like X, I'm not here to say that's not a great idea. I'm not here to say it's a bad idea. I'm just saying you want to do it. You want it. And matter of fact, give me reasons why, great reasons, love it. So character A has to marry character X. I've got no problem with it. The only thing we have to do between now and then, though, is character A is fucking married right now. And so I'm not saying that character A can't marry character X, but somehow we have to now get character A unmarried before he can marry somebody else. That's all I'm saying. So okay, so how's that play out then? Or can we get character X to marry somebody else who isn't married? I don't know. You guys tell me, and I'm not adverse to any of these conversations. I'll talk to you about all of it. We just have to do it, I think, in a somewhat pragmatic fashion, so that I don't get a ton of letters saying, "What? I thought he was married," right? I mean, we're going to get them anyways because I jump the shark every now and then, anyways, from time to time, and I forget oddly my own continuity. You know, you guys probably know more about my first 100 issues than I do. I know the 5,000 level stuff, right? That's the stuff that I know of. Like, here's sort of the big piece of what's going on, right? So, for instance, I'll give you an example of what's currently happening right now. There's a big event going on in the Spawn comic book right now. I think it looks super cool. there's a big giant fucking Godzilla guy, whatever, and there's going to be all these other characters. It's not going to be like a big crossover with the other books or anything, but it's going to look cool. And George and Brett Booth is drawn his butt off on it again because it's in his wheelhouse, and it's going to be super awesome and super fun. The sole reason for that story is so that at the end of it, the world that Spawn lives in will now fully accept that they are not alone. There's been hints along the way, because remember, Spawn's been hiding in the shadows. Those first 100 issues, you could argue that like nobody knew he existed, right? Maybe the odd bum or something like that. But I'm not talking about the villains. I'm talking about your next door neighbor, right? Like people who populate that city. Nobody knew he existed. He was hidden. And then maybe there's the odd story where there was a little bit in the public. And then eventually he became a little bit more public. But again, once you go public, we got the internet that people will think it's a deep fake. Half of it will think it's true, whatever. You're going to have people not believe it, whatever else. And then I've got Gunslinger and I've got issue 300 where I got the time rip and more things are happening. And to me, I just go, okay, we're now getting to the point where I've now got literally the straw has to break the camel's back, which is the world that these characters are in have to now accept that they've been invaded to some extent by these super beings, right? They don't even know the extent of the beings, what their powers are, who's good, who's bad. They don't even know that half of them might even be from hell or from heaven. They don't know that. But they have to accept from a government level and from a socio-economic business level that these people exist. So now writers start writing and keep that in the back of your mind so it will inform you how people should be talking back now. You can't talk like nobody knows. Of course they know. Of course they know. And so it's a cool story visually that the 15-year-old Todd wanted, with the point being that the world now knows that this is a big superhero world filled with a lot of things in it. Cool. That's it. Checkpoint. Done. Next. And 20 years from now, when people ask me, I'm going to go, that was the story that basically broke the dam open, right? Mm-hmm. Issue 301 is the time rip of when all the characters came. That's when the universe truly expanded. And then what we're doing right now is when people accept that expansion from a human point of view of the characters that populate all these books. Okay, now go. Now write the books. Here we go. That's the world that the people live in the DC multiverse and the Marvel universe, right? They know that there are heroes and villains and stuff. Okay, go.
Yeah, and that allows you to create something that the people who only read DC or only read Marvel can come to Spawn and they see something that is similar to what they know, that kind of speaks in a similar language, but is able to show them something completely different.
I wouldn't say completely different, but here's what it does do. For the people who are reading Spawn, I'm kind of less concerned about the people who are reading Marvel and DC, right?
Of course.
So I like the people reading Spawn go, I've seen the government 20 times to 100 times in Todd's comic book. They're now talking differently now. Mm. Why? Because something different happened in the story, in the mythos, in the mythology of the book now, right? That's what I've had to try to do in these 350 issues, is to try and just like change it just enough so that it doesn't feel like you're rereading the same 50 issues that you just read, right? Because that like I got bored of those books too. I don't want people to feel like that. I want them to feel like every 50 issues, like something has moved forward somewhat, right? Somewhat. Mm-hmm. So, and including Spawn. And the biggest move in Spawn as you get further down the line is that for a couple hundred issues, he was just going, just leave me alone. I just want to be alone. I just want to be alone. Just let me live my life, right? Because I got my wife, Wanda. I just love her. And I just leave me alone. Although he's not married to her, he has delusions. He's going to get back to her, just like John Byrne coming back to X-Men. He's gonna do it. And then at some point I go, it's time to move on. Yeah. So how do you move on? One, we killed Wanda. So I don't want to spoil people. It's coming, right? And now so the woman that was the sole reason that you exist. So now why do you exist, Spawn? That's my challenge to me and to my character. All right, If that was 90% of why he's here is that woman, I took that woman away. Now why are you here, Spawn? Right? Give me more. I get it. You love Wanda and you loved her. I get it. I've been reading that story. Give me more than that story. And so now he's just like, okay, she's gone. I know they're here. I disappeared for a while. And when he disappeared, this is the shift that he went from Conan the Barbarian to King Conan. When he came back, he went, I was reading the rule book. The whole time I was gone, I was reading the rule book. And now that I'm back, I actually, not only do I accept that I'm in the game, I'm going to play the game and I'm going to go on to offense now. Where before I was like, I don't even want to play the game. Just leave me alone. Just leave me alone. It's gone the other way. And the first 200 issues where he was saying like, leave me alone, leave me alone. He's now shifted it so that his reputation is such that when he comes, the bad guys are going, oh man, it's Spawn. Leave us alone. Leave us alone. Leave us alone. Right? To shift the dynamics on it. Why? I don't know, because I'm 30 years into it and I just keep trying stuff. That's it. So I'm not saying it's good or bad or indifferent. I'm just saying I've got to try it because I'm still the one at the helm and I need to entertain myself too.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think that's one thing that nobody can knock the book for is its continued evolution. And Todd, I know we've got to wrap up, but I just, we're going to be heading into the next 100 issues, and you've already given us some things to look forward to here. What are your sort of, I guess, final thoughts on those first 100 issues and some words of to rev us up for these next 100?
I would say the first 50 issues was sort of table setting, right? Especially those first 25, right? You got to introduce all these characters and whatever else and get them all there. Then your next 50 issues, now that you've sort of got everybody on the chessboard, is now trying to figure out how they move on the chessboard, right? So that would be issues sort of 51 to 100. And then by issue 100, you start to become comfortable with what it is that you're doing. So you can start to sort of think of more creative ways to play the game that is cat and mouse in the Spawn world, in the Spawn mythology. And so that's sort of what the next 100 issues are, is like, hey, let's go at this angle and then this angle and this angle. We haven't tried it because we now know who these characters are and what's driving them. So we've got different places we can take some of these people. Let's see if any of these are a fun ride. And you start to get the introduction of even newer characters that are going to have a big impact much later down the line.
Awesome. Well, Todd, thank you so much. George, you have anything else?
No, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, Todd. It's been an incredible pleasure, and we've really enjoyed reading Spawn, and we're going to keep enjoying it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate. Obviously, I don't have a career without people like you and the people who listen to your podcast. So I am eternally grateful. My wife and my family, we don't take it for granted one single day. It's why I try to sort of be loyal to the people who've been loyal to me, right? And so that's why I try to keep the price of the books down, keep the books coming out, and try not to, pick people's pockets if I don't need the money. Just do what you got to do and move on to the next one, and be as loyal back to you guys as you guys are to me. So thank you guys too.
You're more than welcome. And hopefully we can have you back to talk about another anniversary issue in the future when we get to 150 or 200.
Yeah, 150 is Terry gets the white streak.
Spoiler
Big
alert.
change. We love it.
Well, we like to end every episode the same. George, for Todd so loved the world,
Gave his only begotten Spawn.
see you later, Hellspawn.
I hadn't heard that one. That's a good one.
Spawnography is recorded in Athens, Georgia, and Queens, New York. It's produced by me, Pierce Lyden. Our theme music and logo were composed by George Marston. Episodes come out every Monday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. If you like the show, please rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on social media at Spawnography or at SpawnographyPod. If you'd like to reach out to us directly, you can do so at spawnographypod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening, and until next time, see you later, Hellspawn.